It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the government plan to impose a social media curfew on 16 and 17-year-olds. But can it crack down on screen time past the teenager test?
If I don't want to go to sleep, if I just want to doom scroll all night, I should be able to have the free will to want to do that. Like, I don't think anyone should be able to control me.
Also tonight, tributes, teasing and tears as Sir Keir Starmer fields questions in the Commons for the final time. The Prime Minister given a standing ovation by his own MPs only weeks after they forced him to resign. Sir Keir Starmer calling on MPs to do more to defend democracy after the killing of Anne Widdecombe, as police revealed that a man was arrested for threatening to shoot Reform leader Nigel Farage. We look at a proposal to change the law in England so that parents of stillborn babies are spared the pain of having to register the death in person. And after weeks of heat waves and wildfires, a new report says that extreme weather in the UK is here to stay. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Good evening. The government has unveiled its latest weapon in its attempts to minimise screen time for teenagers, with a voluntary social media curfew for older teens. The changes would see default settings prevent 16 and 17-year-olds from accessing social media between midnight and 6 a.m. Features like infinite scrolling, that's where an app shows an endless stream of content, will be automatically turned off. However, affected teenagers will be able to turn off these default settings, which is the issue that's resulting in criticism today. And the proposals also include requiring under 18s to take regular breaks when using chatbots. Well, the Minister for AI and Online Safety, Kanishka Narayan, said that he thinks the measures would be welcomed by teenagers.
Young people and families said to us that they didn't want a cliff edge at 16. If you're banning social media for under 16s, have a smoother slope rather than a cliff edge. And yes, it's defaults because we want to empower teenagers who are 16 and 17-year-olds. But two, I wouldn't belittle that because when we have seen evidence on this sort of stuff, in October, for example, some platforms introduced these defaults of this sort. 90% plus teenagers said to us that they've maintained those defaults as well. And so the evidence base is clear, the motivation is very clear, and I would do the disservice to teenagers of saying they're all going to switch it off.
Well, in the Commons this afternoon, the outgoing Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, hailed the wider changes around social media as part of his legacy.
Mr Speaker, we also pulled the lever on the individual cases that matter, including individuals like Carla, who's in the gallery today. She was one of the parents that came to see me about online harm and the harm it can do to our young children, and that's why we banned social media for under 16s. And Daniel, who's also here with his son, who spoke to me many times about the struggles he's had with the cost of living and the need for a safe and secure home for every family and every child to grow up in. They're the people, Mr Speaker, that matter more to me than anything else, because it's their lives that I think about when we make decisions in this government.
So, what do teenagers think of these plans? We sent Shaman Freeman-Powell to find out.
Can you remember a time before having social media?
No, to be honest, I can't really remember.
We now have a whole generation of young people who have never known life offline.
I got my first iPad at 2, and since then it was YouTube. And then obviously I got social media quite young because of the pandemic, and so there wasn't really a time that I wasn't trying to connect with others.
I use like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. I use them quite a lot, especially after March, because I'm a screen time. Like, it used to be around 7 hours, now it's up to around maybe 10 hours. Like, it's not really good. It's gone up quite a bit.
Concerns over the impact that non-stop scrolling is having on young people's lives has prompted the government to introduce yet more restrictions. They want 16 and 17-year-olds to be automatically logged out of social media between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m.
I do think it's the right way to remove their addiction because there's no chance for them to realise how bad this is. They should realise them, like, by themselves.
As long as it's not compulsory, because you shouldn't be able to control. Like, if I don't want to go to sleep, if I just want to doom scroll all night, I should be able to have the free will to want to do that. Like, I don't think anyone should be able to control me, like, tell me to stop doing that. But as long as I have the option, if I wanted to stop,
I do think it is a positive thing, especially for my generation, to stay off your phone at night and actually get some rest and sleep.
These restrictions aren't mandatory or permanent, meaning teenagers can simply switch them off. The government says the changes will help teenagers get more sleep, focus better at school and spend more time with family and friends.
When I hear of like my siblings who are older than me, what their experience of childhood was, I think it was quite innocent and more interactive with real life, and I think our generation, the newer generation, is losing that touch, I think.
Most students agree that restrictions are necessary, but are they more likely to change their phone settings before changing their online habits?
Talk about this more now. We're joined by social media consultant Matt Navarra. Matt, good to see you this evening. I mean, this curfew won't be mandatory. It can be overridden by teens. So many of them asking today, what's the point?
Yeah, I think the thing I'd say up front is that I think we all want teenagers to be better protected online, and some of what the government is doing is directionally right, but this isn't really a curfew. It's just a mildly annoying settings prompt that, with a government press release attached. It's, worth being precise that, under 16s do face a ban, but the 16 and 17-year-olds are just going to have a default which they can switch off in about 4 seconds. So, ministers call these features addictive in their own announcement, but then you hand them teens a switch that they can use to turn it all off. So there's a whole contradiction in there. They've tried to please everybody, the platforms, the privacy campaigners, parents, but they've managed to annoy everyone, and probably done very little to actually improve online safety for teens from doing all of this so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's annoyed this generation of teens because, as they were telling Shimon Freeman-Powell there, they've not known life without social media and phones. But perhaps this is more to create a soft landing, a gentler entry into the online world for future generations, not this cohort. I mean, future generations will know life without social media and smartphones, or at least, have had limited access to it. It won't be perhaps as all-consuming as it is for them now.
Yeah, the government has described today's kind of proposal for 16 and 17-year-olds as a way to avoid the cliff edge when they've come out of a ban from the age of under 16s being banned on social media to then stepping into having full access, and that this is that soft cushion. But we all know that teens are not going to keep these defaults on, and the trial that they based it on was so different from actually the reality of what teens experience social like and how this policy has been laid out and this proposal has been laid out. And we haven't factored in the fact that VPNs are still a significant problem in terms of how to kind of limit teens' access to social media in the original ban that they've planned. So there's so much that still needs to be worked out, that they haven't gone in the right direction on some things I think.
Yeah, I mean, there is much more to come, and the government has said this is still very much at an early stage, almost figuring it out as they go along. I mean, even the blanket ban for under 16s, there's still so much more detail and, practicalities that we're yet to learn about how that's going to work for those under 16. But in terms of that soft landing into the online world for the future generations, those turning 16 and suddenly being allowed on social media, what do you think would be practical measures that are around now? More, I'm sure, will come out in the future, but practical measures that are around now that would work?
At the moment, the main thing is that we're relying on self-control for something that teens have very little self-control over, particularly if the government calls them addictive platforms. And so anything that is optional for the platforms to put in place, or optional for the teens to turn on and use to kind of limits their kind of craving to be on social media, which is, has a lot of good as well as a lot of bad to it, is doomed to failure. And actually the things that are going to work probably do need coordination and cooperation and sort of legal basis from the platforms, the phone device manufacturers as well. At the moment, a lot of it's really geared around relying on parents, relying on settings that can be kind of restricted, but only ones that can be optionally turned off, until there is something that's much more strict and legally enforceable and doesn't have these opt-outs. Then I think we're giving people the illusion of safety, and I think actually that's more dangerous than having no safety at all.
Yeah, I mean, we are still watching how the social media companies and platforms react to this incoming ban for under 16s and these new measures that the government are talking about, and how they adapt their services. Because, as A part of the discussion of the ban for under-16s was the fact that, you know, during the night, a lot of teens are on their phones because they get push notifications. As you said, these platforms are designed to be addictive, and the government said, look, we're going to talk to social media companies about getting rid of that. So how far do you think social companies will work with the government on the sort of bracket of 16 to 18, which is still that grey area? Not an outright ban, it's a sort of advisory sort of gap at the moment.
I think that anything that becomes optional and is doomed to failure, in my personal opinion. I think if they really want to improve the online safety for that age group that gives them that soft landing and actually can be implemented, then there needs to be legal protections and enforcement behind it, and they can't be optional to be turned off. The focus for me shouldn't be on blanket bans. I've never been a particular fan of the idea of blanket bans. I think there is still a lack of evidence to prove they are the best way forwards, but I think something needs to be done. And I think the something for me would be the fact that the design of the apps, the features within the apps that actually increase that dependency, increase the addictiveness of them, that are causing some of the problems that teens experience and that parents and advocates for privacy want addressed. And those features could be restricted and limited in a way that is not optional. And the government, you know, if it wants to put all of these bans in place, then it can go and do a halfway house and do restrictions on features that the platforms have to implement. So they have the option. It's whether they've got the political motivation.
Yeah, and it's a tricky area, isn't it, post-16? Because, of course, in this, you know, once you turn 16 in the UK, you can have sex, you can leave school, start full-time work. So it is sort of a tricky area when you try to enforce something on that age. It very much is guidance. OK, Matt, really good to talk to you about this. Thanks for coming on. Matt Navarra there talking about the government's proposed media curfew on those aged 16 and 17 when it comes to social media. Thanks, Matt. Now, for parents facing the trauma of stillbirth, the bureaucracy of grief can be simply unbearable, being forced to register the death in person in an environment often filled with parents celebrating their newborn babies. Well, now Labour MP Jing McMahon is proposing a change in the law so that it mirrors what happens in Scotland.
I think most of us just assume that this is just part of the natural process, that you have to attend in person, you have to do the registration, and however horrible that experience is, it just is what it is. And what this campaign has shown me is, no, there is another way. And I think we just accepted that bureaucracy has trumped the feelings and the trauma of people who are experiencing baby loss, and that's not OK. And so for me, the bill was important because we're able to show in law this is absolutely possible and we can change this. But it's a human story that sits behind it to say that actually the state, local councils, that they should be supporting people through that trauma and not having systems that make matters even worse.
Well, Mr McMahon has taken up the case of his constituents, Ryan and Cassie Claydon. Ryan described their experience to us.
Before we could lay Matilda to rest, the stillbirth needed to be registered. It was done sort of 4 days, 5 days after we lost Matilda. And it's very difficult because you attend the registry office in person, as you do for registering any birth or any death.
Yes.
And you are in, you know, an active registry office with families that are there that are celebrating registering their newborns.
Yes.
You know, which is a very difficult environment to be in when you're suffering the loss of a child.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think it was a lot. I think it compounded the grief and made the process of losing Matilda even harder.
Well, joining me now, Amajit Kaur Matharu, whose daughter Assis was stillborn in January 2024. Amajit, thank you so much for coming on to speak to us here on the programme tonight. I know this is difficult for you, but I know that you're right behind this campaign. We had Ryan there still having difficulty talking about what happened to him and his partner. Did that mirror your experience? What happened to you as a family?
Yeah, definitely. So Assis was stillborn in January of 2024. And actually, we were originally told by the hospital that somebody would come out to register the birth. Unfortunately, they didn't, and the hospital had lost paperwork. I'd had major surgery, and actually we ended up registering it a few weeks later, when I was actually advised not to walk, but I wasn't going to miss me and my husband being able to register her stillbirth together. And the compounded harm just going into an office which only had glass partition walls where you had babies on either side, it's just awful. You don't obviously feel safe in that space. You feel very triggered, and you just feel like, I'm supposed to be in that place. I'm supposed to be the other person in that room, not me.
Yeah. And it could all be so different. It's, bureaucracy, it's paperwork. And we know in grief, however death happens, families have to go through this. But it doesn't have to be that way, particularly for parents of a stillborn baby. It can be done on the phone. It can be done online. And this happens in Scotland.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things we found through the Leeds campaign was that some families 10 years ago were told that Leeds were going to be looking at ensuring that families could register the stillbirth within the hospital, and that's still not been implemented. So hearing that in Scotland, that's something that happens online, you can do it. It just safeguards bereaved, especially harmed parents as well, who just haven't got it in them to be able to walk, let alone do anything else. And it is just sort of showing that there's health inequalities in that respect as well, and we need to close that, because if Scotland are able to implement it, why can't we in England?
Yeah, I know that you and your husband are part of the Leeds maternity inquiry after the stillbirth of Assis. And I just want to take a moment to reflect on how you were treated from the moment you found out what had happened to Assis to that moment of registration. It seems like the maternity care system is just not set up for bereaved parents, whether it's having a stillbirth on a maternity, on a labour ward, and having to be on a ward with mothers who have had a successful delivery and a baby. Can you talk to some of that about us, if that's okay?
So within my own experience, so I was actually in ICU for a few days on a vent. So I went from ICU into a bereavement suite, which is we're lucky to have that in Leeds compared to other areas in the country who go on to a ward where people have had babies. And the care is almost, they're pushing you out the door. I'm not saying that some of the midwives weren't great, because they were, but it was just an element of, today's the day you're going home. I didn't go home for 12 days because I couldn't walk, and I needed certain milestones being hit by ICU colleagues and by maternity. And I think just this thing about compounding harm. So actually, they lost Assis's paperwork to be able to register her stillbirth. So that just adds another layer of, hang on a second, why is this not being done? And the questions that come up after you've been through this sort of trauma, and you yourself are trying to heal whilst having blackouts in your own memory because I was that ill. It's just really horrible, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And if we can make it just a little bit better for someone in the future, to make sure actually they're safe to be able to, if they wish, they can go and register in person. If they don't, they want to do it online, then that option's there for them, because I think we definitely would have done it online had we had that option.
Yeah, Amajit, it's about time, isn't it? And about sensitivity. Regardless of what happens during birth, mothers need time, whatever the outcome is, but particularly when it comes to miscarriage and stillbirth, time seems to stand still, doesn't it? And you just need that breathing space.
Definitely.
You can't put a time limit on whether it's, registering the stillbirth of your baby or your recovery. So what would your message be to government? Because these changes are simple. These changes are so simple, but they mean so much to families like yours.
Definitely. So, for us, I think one of the things was we can't proceed with giving Assis her send-off until we get the registration done. So if this is something we have to get done to be able to give our children the send-off that we want them to have, then why wouldn't you want to make it easier on families that are already harmed or bereaved? And obviously everyone has preventable or non-preventable loss, but why would we want to be complicit in compounding more harm to people that are already in a dark place? And ultimately, we don't want to be a burden on the NHS. We don't want to be a burden on the system. So why don't we put these things in place to protect people as well? I think I'd implore government to actually pass this bill to make sure that actually people have the choice to be able to make that for them and their families.
Yeah, Amajit, it is the most traumatic event you can go through, and I know, you know, you're still, in some sense, right in the middle of this, of course, because you're contributing to the inquiry because you still don't know why Assis was stillborn. You're still looking for answers. In that sense, I want to pay tribute to you and your husband and all the other families that are contributing to this Leeds maternity inquiry, Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what that experience is like for you? Because, you know, it's something that you really want to do, but I would imagine is really painful.
Yeah, I think I came across the Facebook group that was originally set up in Leeds by two of the other families, and I reached out and went for the first walk I'd had post-op about 6, 7 or 8 months later with one of them. And it was the first time that I was made to feel like I wasn't the only one that had been impacted by failures. In fact, some of the correlations that I had with the person that I met with were so alike, but there was 4 years difference between them. So change that should have happened didn't happen. For me, this is the only way I can parent Assis. It's the only way Mandip can parent Assis as well. And for us, it's firstly, there was institutional racism involved in what we went through, and that's not actually highlighted enough within the maternity space. And we wanted to make sure that within the wider Asian community, voices are there, because actually we are more likely to be harmed, like our Black brothers and sisters as well. Like, it's just a fact of maternity. So our fight is very much about how do we prevent anybody, firstly, having this happen to them where it's preventable. But secondly, how do we make sure that inequalities aren't just made smaller because there's worse outputs for everybody? Actually, we'd like to see maternity now turn into the best in the world rather than where it is for a first world country.
Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on this evening to talk to us about this important campaign and also about maternity care in general. I really appreciate Amajit Kaur Matharu remembering her stillborn daughter, Assis. Thank you so much. Well, at lunchtime today, Sir Keir Starmer held his final PMQs in the House of Commons. As is often the case with these occasions, there was a glut of tributes, jokes and even the odd tear. But there were also a few barbs from the opposition benches about why, if things were going so well, his MPs were forcing him from office. Here's our political correspondent, Ali Fortescue.
Every Prime Minister knows when they take up the torch that the day will come when they have to pass it on. That day has come for me. This is the end of my political journey. To all colleagues across the House, can I wish you good health and happiness? To all those in the gallery, you're the reason I came into politics. To my wife and children, I love you. Goodbye.
Many Labour MPs were on their feet for Keir Starmer. It wasn't quite the standing ovation on both sides we saw for Tony Blair after his 10 years. But look, 2 years since Keir Starmer won that landslide victory, this did feel like one of the more emotional final PMQs because he didn't want to go, and many in his own party do feel that he is going before his time.
I can do this. Can I thank my right honourable and very dear friend for everything he's given to our party and our country.
And something that really surprised me today was Kemi Badenoch, because look, she is not someone who's afraid to kick a dog when it's down. We saw that when Rachel Reeves was crying at PMQs last year.
She looks absolutely miserable.
But today, I think, was the softest Kemi Badenoch I have seen yet.
I wanted to make sure that I got the tone right today. So I looked back at his final questions to Boris Johnson, and luckily for him, I plan to be much gentler than he was that day.
You can tell a lot by where everyone sits. We saw on one side of Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, so closely linked, of course, to his project as his Chancellor. On the other side, David Lammy, who really was in the bunker with the Prime Minister right till the end. Not that nearby were Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, both of whom we know spoke to him, wanted him to leave really before he was ready. So there you have it. The curtain falls on yet another Prime Minister. A quick reminder of some of the parting shots from PM's past.
Hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
Well, as I once said, I was the future once.
As for Keir Starmer, it was his family who were watching on in the chamber who got his final tribute.
To my wife and children, I love you. Goodbye.
Does come on the UK tonight. Defend our democracy. That was the call from Sir Keir Starmer after the killing of Anne Widdecombe as police arrest a man for threatening to shoot Nigel Farage.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Well, as he opened his final PMQ, Sir Keir Starmer paid tribute to Anne Widdecombe and urged politicians to do more to defend our democracy. This afternoon, it emerged that a man had been arrested after threatening to shoot Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Speaking before that was revealed, the party's Home Affairs spokesperson, Zia Youssef, said he hopes to potentially boost safety resources for former politicians who are still in the public eye.
It is quite a large group of people, well aware of that. Yes, it will cost money, well aware of that. But I maintain we do not have a functioning democracy in the United Kingdom if MPs feel that they, again, of all parties, I want to be crystal clear, the policy response we are proposing, and I've actually advocated for some time, is for all MPs of all parties, and it will be based in terms of former politicians. It will, of course, risk assessments will form a part of it. But, you know, the threshold at which point that security becomes necessary under a Reform government will be much, much lower than it is currently, based on the things that I have seen within our party.
Oh, well, let's get more on this story and bring in our chief political correspondent, John Craig. John.
Well, that was Zia Youssef, the Reform UK Party's Home Affairs spokesman, at a news conference this morning when he made this announcement about spending potentially, or making available, up to £100 million for not just MP security, but former MPs, one assumes members of the House of Lords, for example. That was Mr Youssef answering a question from Sky's Rob Powell, our political correspondent. Then this afternoon came this development, a statement from the Metropolitan Police which did not name Nigel Farage, but said that on Tuesday, a man in his 20s was arrested by Metropolitan Police officers, Met officers, on suspicion of sending threatening communications to a Member of Parliament. And the Met said the arrest relates to a social media post from earlier this year, which was reported to police on Friday, the 8th of May. Now, that was the day after the local elections, when Reform did very well. After receiving the report, detectives submitted an application to a social media platform to gain access to the user's contact information. After the relevant information was returned to detectives, the man was arrested with support from Met officers at a residential address in South London. And after being held in police custody overnight, he has since been bailed pending further inquiries. Well, very soon after that, Mr Farage revealed that the Member of Parliament in question, although he's quit to fight a by-election, was Mr Farage indeed. He said that this is the first time the police have ever proactively acted on a social media post. I hope they're looking at the other 300 or 400 similar posts from this year alone. This has been going on for years, not just words, but videos of people firing guns and so on. And in the past, we have put multiple reports into the police, always to be told that these social media posts don't meet the threshold, which is extraordinary, he said. And Mr Farage added this, he said, if the police now decide to act to protect the lives of serving and ex-politicians, then at least something good will have come out of Anne Widdecombe's horrific death. So Mr Farage has complained for some time that he gets more threats than any other politician. He, of course, does get lots of threats. He's not alone, of course. Plenty of MPs get threats. A lot of women MPs in particular get pretty nasty abuse as well. And a lot of MPs get racist abuse as well. It is a really growing problem, the abuse that MPs are getting, and indeed the threats. It does, and Mr Farage has really brought this story to the public's attention by admitting that the person arrested in this case is him. And of course it comes as Reform UK are demanding much tougher security, not just for Mr Farage, who is currently a by-election candidate, not a Member of Parliament, but they're demanding it for all politicians should they want that extra security. Would cost a lot of money though, and some critics of Mr Farage and Mr Youssef say it's impractical and it would be difficult to provide the sort of protection that they are demanding. Many MPs, they don't want heavy security. I mean, for example, poor David Ames, who was killed a couple of years back, he always insisted he wanted to be free to meet constituents. Same's true of many, many MPs. But there is a real worry now that MPs are facing really nasty threats. Mr Farage has welcomed this move, but says more needs to be done to protect him.
John, thank you. John Craig in Westminster for us tonight. Still to come on the programme. The boss of Thames Water claims that Andy Burnham's policies are threatening a bailout deal for the debt-ridden company.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back. We're going to take you live to Pennsylvania now. Donald Trump scheduled to make some remarks on defence. He's just begun speaking. Let's take a listen.
Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and these investments will create more than 4,000 jobs. Pennsylvania workers will build the ships, submarines, trucks, weapons, and industries that will ensure America remains the strongest and most powerful nation in the history of the world. We're doing better now than we've ever done. We have $19.2 trillion. We used to go million, then we went billion, now we're into the trillions, but there's never been anything like it. The country is as hot as it's ever been, and we're doing really well with Iran. The Islamic Republic of Iran is not happy right now. Should have been done 47 years ago, should have been done at least during the 47-year period. And it wasn't. Other presidents didn't do what was right. They should have done it a long time ago. It would have been much easier. And they want to settle so badly. They don't like what we're doing. And they do want to settle. We'll find out whether or not we settle with them or we just finish it off. But I want to thank Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's been amazing. Pete, thank you very much. Great job. He's been really amazing. You know, he used to do interviews. All he wanted to talk about is war. Sir, would you give a pardon to 19 soldiers? Why? Why? Well, they killed a lot of people. They were trained to kill, and that's what they did. And I pardoned a lot of people. But they've all been well behaved, right? Okay, good. Otherwise, it'll be a big story. Trump shouldn't have let him go. But I'm blaming you, Pete, okay? But he was very successful, actually, on television. I think he probably hated it because he can't love anything more than what he's doing right now, and he's doing it incredibly well. So great job, Pete. Appreciate it. Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler. Kelly, wherever you may be. Thank you very much. She's great. Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll, who's really out there with that beautiful smile. With that beautiful smile, but he's actually a killer. Look at that beautiful, nice face. Everything's so happy. He's a killer. Would you believe it? Those are the best kinds, actually.
Now we're going to leave President Trump there. We'll continue to monitor what he says in Pennsylvania. Has spoken some words on Iran anymore. We'll bring them to you. He says Iran wants to settle so badly. We'll keep across that for you here on Sky News. Now, the chief executive of Thames Water has told Sky News that uncertainty over Andy Burnham's plans for the water industry has increased the risk that a deal to bail out the firm could collapse. Britain's largest water company is due to run out of money by the end of this year, as its latest figures show its debt grew to almost £20 billion, despite posting an annual profit. Here's our business and economics correspondent, Paul Kelso.
Andy Burnham says he thinks the essentials of life should be in public control, and they don't get much more essential than water. And Thames Water, in particular, might provide an early test of the principles he's going to bring to Downing Street. This is what Burnham said about Thames Water last month. Public ownership is absolutely an option, I would say, for Thames Water. That is what should be done. That's crystal clear, isn't it? But Thames is in the middle of negotiations with its creditors to try and rescue the company, stop it running out of money and collapsing. And this is what its chief executive told me about Burnham's position. The situation is very fluid. There's a lot of uncertainty, which has been added to by the change of Prime Minister. Our creditors continue to be supportive, but it does heighten the risk. Now, Thames is in deep trouble. It is drowning in debt, and the central problem is explained by this snapshot from its accounts. Customer bills just don't come close to cover spending. This is the most recent accounts. After covering the cost of running the company, operating expenses, paying wages and the like, nearly £2 billion was left from customer bills. But the company is committed to £2.5 billion of spending on infrastructure, stopping sewage outflows, leaks, the stuff people want to be spent. That takes it into deficit, even before another £500 million of cash goes out the door to meet interest payments. There's a total deficit of £1.1 billion it can only meet from borrowing. They're paying 10% for this debt. Borrowing's going to run out by the end of the year. It's simply unsustainable. So the creditors, who are ultimately in control now, have got a plan to restructure the debt, take all this, £23 billion of debt, plus £5 billion for the current shareholders that's now effectively worthless, and cut that down to £11 billion. A lot of people will lose a lot of money, but the Class A debt holders, they're the ones who are now in charge. They say they'll put in another £10 billion to keep the company going and to invest in the stuff people want. At some point, they'll look to list it on the stock exchange and cash out. The Environment Secretary has said she doesn't like this, and if it doesn't get over the line, what are the alternatives? Well, there's special administration. This isn't nationalisation. It's effectively an administrator takes control, looks for a buyer. The current creditors say they would bid. But the cost of keeping the taps running while that's going on, that's between £4 and £8 billion. There's another alternative, full nationalisation of the whole privatised industry. The Environment Department says that could cost £100 billion. There's a lot of debate about that number, but however it's done, it would cost. And the taxpayer wouldn't just have to buy it, it would have to find the money to invest in infrastructure. The only way you get that, ultimately, is from customer bills. And you see, after they were flat for a long time, that was one of the reasons there's not enough money spent on the water industry. They've jumped, and they're likely to have to keep on rising. If we want clean rivers and clean beaches, the only people who ultimately can pay is customers. All the more reason Andy Burnham might think that this money should stay in public hands. But with control comes responsibility, not just for those bills, but for everything that ends up in our rivers.
The family of a British man who has been held in Iran since January 2025 say his prison sentence has been increased by 2 years. Craig Foreman and his wife Lindsay were arrested while travelling through the country during an around-the-world motorcycle trip. In February, both were sentenced to 10 years in prison after being convicted of espionage, which they both deny. Sky News spoke to Joe Bennett this morning about how his mother and stepfather's situation is getting worse.
The situation's getting alarming, to say the least. There's a lot of stuff going on at the moment, but one report that we've got is quite a big piece, and it's a serious escalation. We've received reports that Craig has been given an additional 2 years in prison, no fair legal process. He was denied access to his lawyer, denied a translator, and I believe denied the opportunity to even defend himself. And that is so concerning for us and the people involved in the campaign, because there's just no justice in it at all. We can't verify these reports because we haven't been given the whole picture, but everything's pointing to this being done about a week ago. He was, from what we understand, taken into a room with two men, questioned, or more so allogated, and then left with 2 years extra on his sentence. And it's unbelievable, really. We don't understand where this come from or what due process there's been. There hasn't been any. You know, we were shocked as anybody to start to hear these reports coming from inside Evin.
With information from inside Iran hard to come by, Joe says his family have now called for more immediate action from the Foreign Office.
In terms of what we're looking at from the Foreign Office, we've demanded a meeting with the Foreign Secretary now, because this needs to be taken and escalated to a very serious place. You know, they've been prescribed the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. My parents are at the centre of it, and at the moment, it doesn't feel as though the urgency is there for the Foreign Office. You know, it's worrying and it's alarming at the lack of action that I've seen, to be honest.
Well, Craig and Lindsay Foreman have now been detained in Iran since January of last year, and Joe says he remains increasingly concerned about their well-being.
I mean, it impacts us as a family. We care deeply for them, and I think they're already enduring an experience that not many, have to face or would want to go through. But their health's deteriorating every day at the moment matters. We've don't know whether they're receiving proper medical care. And we're at such an alarming rate of days now that, you know, we can't wait another week or another month for them to be seen. This has to happen immediately. We have to, you know, that is priority number one for us at the moment, is immediate welfare and medical access. We have to know independently how they're doing and how they're coping. You know, on the face of it, they can tell people they're okay, but that I don't think that's the true feeling of them both. It's alarming. You know, we are all worried sick because of how long it's been. You know, I didn't know the body could endure like it has. It still fights. They still fight. We still fight. But every day that passes, it gets harder.
Still to come on the UK tonight. After heat waves and wildfires, a new report says that Britain's climate has fundamentally changed, and how the World Cup could affect the final day of the Open.
In the opening hours of the war on Iran, a primary school was hit by a missile designed to blow up military bunkers.
What I've seen, that was done by Iran.
We've been investigating.
Can you explain why you cannot reveal what happened in Minab?
Denial, denial. And we've travelled to Minab, grave after grave. It's overwhelming to gather evidence and talk to victims.
I just have a question, why?
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
All alcohol products, not just wine, will have labels warning of liver disease and the link to fatal cancers.
Is it crazy? It's an industry worth around €14 billion a year. That's why Italy sees this Irish plan as such a threat. It's always instructive and occasionally entertaining to hear what Donald Trump has to say on the issue of Brexit.
She's got her own way of doing it, that's okay.
The job takes me to every corner of this island.
The rioting stemmed from a horrific daytime stabbing attack at a primary school in the city centre.
The scale of the rioting and the destruction it caused is pretty much unprecedented here in Dublin. Jerry, any comment on the judge's decisions? Do you feel vindicated, Jerry? This is the end, the somewhat chaotic end, of a 52-day trial.
Micheál Martin could be set to head back to government with the Taoiseach Simon Harris.
Are you confident that you can now return as Taoiseach?
I'm cautiously optimistic and excited.
A mystery press conference hastily called. Leo Varadkar strode out and didn't disappoint.
I am resigning as President and Leader of Fine Gael effective today.
The people here sometimes feel they're somewhat neglected by the Irish government, to the extent that this place is sometimes known as the Forgotten County.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks, but none have ever been found.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland. Sky News, get the full story first.
Right, let's get an update on the latest sport now with Jess.
The first time I drove a Formula 1 car was 1983, the end of the season, when McLaren decided to give three of us a chance in F1. And one was Stefan Bellof, the German driver who would become my teammate at Tyrrell the following year. The other was Ayrton Senna, who I'd had a massive fight with in the Formula 3 season. And of course I was the third driver. And we got to drive this beautiful McLaren. It just felt incredibly fast, but we were at home. We all did very similar times, lap times. John Watson set the benchmark for us as the works McLaren driver at the time. And then somehow Ayrton Senna negotiated a second go and went a bit faster than us, which was quite interesting actually when I think about the years that were ahead of us. All three of us were in F1 the following season, so it went well. Last time you wish you were back in the car rather than behind the mic? Pretty much every Grand Prix, to be honest, but you have to sort of let these things go eventually. I'm pleased that I'm not in the car, if I'm honest, on those really rainy days where you can't see where you're going and it all looks really sketchy. But the car's pretty safe these days, so the circuit. First car after passing my driving test, we had some car dealerships, a Toyota dealership I used to work in, I used to sell cars for my mum and dad, and there was a crashed Toyota Corolla 1300 SR coupe, and it had all the front stoved in, and my dad said if I could fix it I could have it, so I did. And
Now, there have been heat waves already, 3 of them this summer, and this week saw the outbreak of wildfires across the country. However, extreme weather events like this could be here to stay, with a new report out today from the Met Office saying that Britain's climate has fundamentally changed. Well, let's speak now to Mike Kendon, Senior Climate Scientist at the Met Office. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme tonight, Mike. A fundamental change to our climate. Explain that for us.
Yeah, that's right. So this report is about observations from weather stations across the UK. These are measuring temperatures and other variables at the land surface. So where we live, what we experience outside every day, and we have very long-term context records to provide long-term context back to Victorian times. And it's very clear from the observations that in terms of temperature, the climate of the 20th century has now gone. Last year was the warmest year on record for the UK. It included the warmest spring and the warmest summer on record. These records go back to 1884. And this is actually the 6th time this has happened so far this century. We are warming at about 1/4 degree per decade, and we're now a degree and a third warmer than 1961 to 1990. So it's very, very clear that our climate has changed. It's substantially different from what it was in the 20th century.
Yeah, a fundamental change, and it will keep changing. The question is, will it speed up?
Yeah, well, it's very clear that our climate is on the move. Another way of considering this is thinking about a degree and a third might not sound much, mightn't it, in the context of the variability in our weather on a day-to-day basis that we all know. But if we think about the range of climates that we have in the UK, from the warmest areas in Greater London to the coldest areas, upland areas in the tops of the mountains in Scotland, that range only covers about 8 degrees. So the warming is about 1/6 of that. What we're effectively seeing is we are, in the warmest areas, importing new climates that we've not seen before in the UK. In the upland areas, the coldest areas are effectively shrinking, and we're seeing the warming moving north and uphill. So if you lived somewhere like the Vale of York or Lancashire, the annual mean temperatures that you experience now are like what you would have experienced in Greater London in the period 1961 to 1990. But it's actually the extremes that are really changing the most. And we can see the hottest day of the year in parts of southeast England has actually warmed 3 times more than the annual mean temperature figure. So these things have a real impact.
Yeah, they do have a real impact. I mean, talk to us about the effects that we're seeing at the moment and that we're likely to see in the future.
Yeah, well, we've had the third heat. We're still within the third heat wave of 2026 so far. We smashed the May station temperature record for the UK. We smashed the June temperature record for the UK. And these events, these events are part of a pattern. If we look at the number of days over 30 degrees, for example, since the period 1961-1990. And it might seem hard to imagine now, but actually 1 in 5 years in the 20th century, we did not reach even 30 degrees in the UK anywhere all year. So our climate is absolutely changing. And why does this matter? Well, obviously, much of our infrastructure, our built environment, our hospitals, agriculture and so on, is based on a climate of the 20th century, the climate we no longer have. So what used to be extreme, we now increasingly think of as normal. what used to be normal, we increasingly think of as cold. But where we are now is not necessarily where we're going to stay. Our projections in the climate science we do here at the Met Office suggests that we are going to continue to warm, and really how much we warm more depends on how much more in the way of greenhouse gases we continue to emit into the Earth's atmosphere and how our Earth system responds. It's a hugely complicated system.
Yeah, complicated system, an urgent conversation that we will continue to have. As you said, we are in the middle of this third heat wave this year. It is by no means done yet. Really appreciate your time tonight. That is Mike Kendon there, Met Office Senior Climate Scientist. I'm sure we will speak again in the very near future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And with that, we will take a look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, the next few days will stay essentially dry and very warm, but heat wave conditions look like becoming largely confined to the southwest by the weekend. It's going to be mainly dry and sunny into this evening, but southwestern parts of both England and Ireland may see the odd, possibly thundery shower. It's going to be rather grey near many North Sea coasts, mainly from Norfolk northwards. Low cloud there will extend inland again tonight, taking over much of eastern Britain and the Midlands, while northern Scottish coasts may well turn rather murky. You can expect a few inland fog patches in the northwest as well, while any showers in the southwest should fade away. It's going to be more warm for most of us, very warm over southwestern parts. Tomorrow morning is looking mostly dry and sunny once again. After that, early cloud burns off inland, but it will stay rather grey near many northern and eastern British coasts. Temperatures much like they have been today, but it won't be as windy in the south. The far southwest of England and the south of Ireland may catch the odd thundery downpour later in the day.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, I'm not here tomorrow. Leah Balletto will take the reins on the UK tonight. So when I next see you, we will have a new Prime Minister and we may well have a World Cup. There's a certain match going on right now. It is half-time. I know what I'm going to be doing for the next hour. That's right. I'll be watching the world with Barbara, Sarah. I'll see you Monday.